Thanks for staying with us. In our very first story this evening, Accra High Court has ordered government to allocate funds to the Domestic Violence Support Fund to provide free medical care for victims. The court, presided over by Justice Anthony Yeboah, however, stayed the enforcement of the order for 6 months pending service on the state and also the proper budgetary allocation for the implementation of the order.
Justice Anthony Yeboah granted the relief sought by private legal practitioner Martin Kpebu after the Attorney General's Department failed to enter an appearance. During proceedings, Martin Kpebu revealed that the fund, a statutory creation, has not received any funds from government 10 years after it was created after the passage of the Domestic Violence Act in 2007. Delivering judgment despite failure of the Attorney General's Department to appear, Justice Anthony Yeboah noted the case borders on the fundamental human rights of citizens and public interest. Interacting with the media after proceedings, lawyer Martin Kpebu was elated the ruling would provide support for the less privileged and vulnerable in society.
With this order, the state is going to have to set up shelters across the country, to serve as a haven for persons who are abused. Apart from that, the state will also draw on the fund to give training to police and other stakeholders to increase their capacity immensely so that they can better prosecute, so that they can better give protection to victims of domestic violence.
Lawyer Martin Kpebu filed the application seeking an order of the court to compel the state to provide free medical care for victims of domestic violence. According to the applicant, Section 8.3 of the Domestic Violence Act 2007 Act 732 mandates the state to provide free medical care for victims of domestic violence. Mr. Kpebu further stated that Section 29 of the same Act 732 demands that a domestic violence support fund be set up or established to provide basic material support for victims of domestic violence and to rescue, rehabilitate, and reintegrate victims of domestic violence.
So it's a clear problem, and then Martin Kpebu has done quite well in dealing with this because we pass laws in this country. Effective implementation is a problem. It is. And then that's why, over 10 years after this law came into force, and this critical part of it has not been done. Very well, Alfred.
It is critical because, the Domestic Violence Act, it protects victims of domestic violence. So I'm going to run you by the Act. The Domestic Violence Act 732, subclause 29 demands that government establishes a fund to take care of the victims of domestic violence. That's what you saw in the story earlier. The Act further explains that the fund shall be applied towards the basic material support of victims of domestic violence for training of the families of victims of domestic violence. It also further states that for any matter connected with the rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration of victims, this act shall protect victims of domestic violence. Now, one might be concerned of what offenses are actually classified as domestic violence. Domestic violence usually happens in a domestic setting, a home setting preferably. The various sources of domestic violence or offenses classified as domestic violence is physical abuse, emotional, sexual and psychological, as well as financial abuse. Reports actually do show that women happen to be the highest who have to go through domestic violence as compared to men. That's in Ghana and even across the world. And so this Domestic Violence Act put in place is meant basically to support and to protect victims of domestic violence.
In 2015, I recall that there was an increase in the number of men who were abused. It's for both a male and female issue. If you beat me up, I cannot walk into the police station because it's sometimes because of the stigma attached to it.
That's very true.
They'll laugh at you why you allow the woman to beat you up.
That's true, Alfred.
But there are men suffering in society.
There are men and women.
I have no idea.
Mostly women.
It's good.